What's up, y'all? My name is JR, and for those of you who don't already know, I'm a huge movie and TV nerd. If you're new here, I appreciate you taking the time to check out my channel. I hope you consider sticking around and joining the film community I'm trying to build here on YouTube. So in today's video, I'm going to be talking about episode 9 of the Paramount Plus crime drama mystery television series, Dexter Resurrection, and the handful of things I felt kept it from being the perfect episode. And just so you guys know, this video will contain spoilers, so if you haven't gotten around to watching this episode yet and you don't want to know anything that happens in it, you might want to exit this video now. And with that being said, no more wasting time. Let's get into it. This season of Dexter Resurrection has been a bit up and down for my taste to this point. I thought the pilot episode was a bit overcooked, again, in my opinion, with way too many cameos that did little but pad the episode's runtime, in my opinion. I also think there are a few plot threads that have been meandering as the season has moved along, changing speeds haphazardly from episode to episode. That said, when it comes to Dexter, I am a fan, and I'm nothing if not loyal. So here I've been watching episodes of a show I don't even think was a good idea from a narrative standpoint, and to that end, I can admit that, though the series certainly hasn't been perfect, I've been mildly entertained, especially by the main subplot, that being Batista retiring and coming to New York to get Dexter and bring him to justice, mostly because that's how I think the original show probably should have ended in the first place. And after watching episode 9 entitled Touched by an Angel, I can say that the episode in particular was really good. In fact, I only had 3 real issues throughout the entire episode, most of them being small. Now, the first narrative issue I had with episode 9 was Blessing's sudden change of heart. Now, in the previous episode, while Dexter was receiving acupuncture treatment by Blessing's daughter Joy, he let the cat out of the bag about Blessing's violent past, which left Joy extremely unsettled. And when Blessing found out that Dexter had explained to Joy about his past, he angrily confronted Dexter, and it seemed like their budding friendship might be at risk, and maybe even Blessing's willingness to let Dexter continue to live in their basement. But when Dexter came to Blessing in this episode to ask him for a favor, again, Blessing met him initially with anger, showing us that he was still extremely upset by Dexter's betrayal. But then Dexter clumsily apologizes for his indiscretion, and Blessing immediately calms himself, hugging Dexter in complete and utter forgiveness. Now, I would have much rather Blessing had started this conversation having already taken the time to calm down and forgive Dexter. Narratively, that would have just made a lot more sense. Instead, the character goes from, "What the fuck do you want?" to "Sure, I'd love to do you a favor," in the span of mere seconds. And it just didn't fit the arc of the subplot we've seen over the last couple of episodes where these two characters are concerned. Now, is that a huge deal? No, it's not. But that's just something small that I thought would have made that particular scene within the episode flow just a little bit better, in my opinion. Now, the second narrative issue I had with this episode was Charlie's abduction. Now, Charlie has been portrayed as highly capable throughout this season, shown as someone who can absolutely handle herself in a plethora of situations. In this particular episode, when Dexter breaks into her house, we see that she's had a prestigious military career. Again, highly capable, especially given what she does for Prater. So, when Dexter tracks her down and attacks her in her car for harassing Harrison, and he wraps his Geely saw around her neck, we see that she becomes instantly frightened, something that her character wouldn't be in a situation like that. Someone with her military background wouldn't be afraid of death, because she'd maybe even seen death a lot. She's got medals and everything, so that means not only was she in the military, but she was in special forces units, and she's done things and seen things done. Now, sure, maybe she would be afraid that her mother might be left alone if she was killed. But I don't think she would be afraid of death itself. The job that she does for Prater puts her life at risk constantly. So I just don't see someone in her position being so afraid of death as to what we see her as when Dexter threatens her life. I think it much more likely that she would be angry at the fact that Dexter got the drop on her. Maybe slightly irritated that, oh, you're threatening my life, and, it's just, this is something that kind of gets on my nerves, but not fearful. Again, a small thing that I think would have benefited the scene in question within the confines of this episode. But the last narrative issue I had within the episode was Batista's death. Now, I knew when I heard that Batista was coming back for this show that either one of two things would happen. Either he would be the one to finally bring Dexter to justice, or he would die trying. But when I heard this series was going to be several seasons, I knew it meant that Batista would not be long for this world. And even though I had hoped that Batista would have lasted a little bit longer, because if you got several seasons, I feel like his character could have made it at least to a season 2 or 3 or whatever, and then he could have been killed. And like I said, especially seeing as how this series is scheduled for several seasons. But if he absolutely had to be sacrificed this season, episode 9 was the perfect episode for that to happen. And guys, listen, I love the plot points that led up to Batista's demise. The fact that he saw Dexter with Prater outside the restaurant. The fact that he then went to the precinct and was told to get out of town and stripped of his badge by Detective Wallace. Then, on his way out, he saw the poster with Prater on it, revealing his name, which gave Batista the ability to track Prater down to warn him about Dexter, ultimately revealing Dexter's real identity to Prater. And then Prater having Dexter to come in and kill him in front of him and Charlie. This was brilliant plot progression within the episode. All the pieces, I tell you guys all the time, plot points have to go from point to point to point to point to point in a reasonable fashion. And this was stellar writing. But it's how Batista died that I didn't particularly love. In the original series, Dexter was almost caught by the good guys a few times. And every time he was let off the hook because the good guys died in the attempt to ultimately bring him to justice. And, think about it. Dokes catches Dexter. He's killed by Lila before he can really do anything about it. LaGuerta catches Dexter. She's killed by Deborah before she has a chance to do anything about it. And I think it was finally time for Dexter to empty his own trash instead of having somebody else do it for him. I feel like Dexter should have been forced to kill Batista. In episode 7, Dexter threatened Batista, and Batista essentially told him to go fuck himself. I think narratively, it would have been both astonishing and heartbreaking all at the same time if Dexter had actually been the one who killed Batista in front of Prater and Charlie. And before you guys tell me that Dexter doesn't kill good guys, remember, in the original show, he did kill innocent people on a handful of occasions, typically to keep from being caught. Also, if you remember in Dexter New Blood, Dexter killed Logan to escape imprisonment. So there's precedent. And I know that Dexter freed Angel in this episode, hoping that Angel would help him deal with Prater and Charlie, to kind of help it be like a more even situation, 2-on-2. But Dexter already had the chance to take Charlie off the board, and he passed. So in that regard, I believe that Dexter contributed to his own issue there, especially if Charlie just ends up dying next episode anyway. I get the sense that Charlie might be a one-season wonder. So if Charlie ends up dying in episode 10, then Dexter could have just killed Charlie this episode and kept it pushing, in my opinion. And watching Dexter plead with Angel for forgiveness by way of explaining that he didn't kill Dokes or Maria as Angel took his last breath, only to be emphatically denied his wish, just solidifies, for me at least, the fact that Angel was Dexter's to kill, whether he wanted to do it or not. Because after all, don't get caught is the first rule of the code, is it not? And this takes me all the way back to the very first episode of the season and the series when Batista tracked Dexter down at the clinic and was all buddy-buddy with him. My thing is, if you came all the way to New York thinking that Dexter is the Bay Harbor Butcher, you should have been kicking in the door on some bring that ass here boy type energy. And I just didn't understand what the whole good cop routine was about, because you're not dealing with someone who's never been in trouble before, who might be tempted to tell you everything that you need to know if you just be nice to them. You're talking about a blood spatter analyst who worked alongside you for more than a decade. A person that you believe to be the serial killer, the Bay Harbor Butcher, who has killed at this point dozens and dozens of people, who is also at least responsible for the death of 2 of your colleagues. Well, 3 if you count Deb. So the idea that you would come all the way to New York and get buddy-buddy with him, hoping what? That Dexter was just like, okay, yeah, Batista, I'll just come back to Miami with you, cuff me, and let's go. No. And it really made me sad because Batista ends up dead, and I think the mistake he made was playing this game with Dexter as though you could just simply convince him to come in. And I just didn't understand why the writers wasted an entire episode having Batista play nice with Dexter, only to have Batista circle back halfway through the season and now, play bad cop. When he's riding in the car with Dexter, he drops the AirPods in there. Dexter goes, hey, this is going to end up bad if you don't leave me alone. And Batista's like, I don't give a shit what you're talking about. I'm coming for them ass hairs. You feel me? So if you could get to that point midway through the season, I don't understand why you didn't just start off that way. If not for just a pacing issue, right? I think that's the only reason why. And I always tell you guys, that's a bad reason, right? You need to give the characters hopes and dreams, wants and wishes, fears and insecurities, and then you drop them in a situation and you let them tell you what would happen. I hate it when writers play puppet master and they go, well, I'm going to have this character make this decision simply because that's what I need them to do for the story, instead of letting the characters be who they are. And that's what I feel like the writers did in the first episode of this particular series, which is just one of the reasons why I didn't like the first episode of this series. And I kind of was worried about the show as it progressed. Even though a lot of my, concerns have been alleviated, throughout the course of the season. Now, overall, I'd give this episode an 85% or an 8.5 you're thinking IMDb score. Now, I know you guys probably think, if you've been here with me for a while, I can be super nitpicky with my criticisms here on this channel. And I'm sure if you've listened to this video all the way through, you're probably thinking I'm being nitpicky here in this video as well. And I won't fight you on that assessment, as I tend to fashion myself a pretty meticulous guy. That said, I have no problem admitting this was a pretty stellar episode of television. One of the best Dexter episodes I've seen in quite some time. And if you guys notice, an 85%, I don't get that high very often, but I tell you guys, if you get past a 9, you're literally talking about a near perfect episode of television. I wasn't particularly a fan of bringing Dexter back at the end of New Blood, in the past with Original Sin, or in the present with Resurrection. Mostly because I feel the writers have fucked up the ending of the OG Dexter series and New Blood now, so I have zero faith that we're going to actually ever get a proper ending to this show that's going to be satisfactory. But assuming we do get the same level of writing moving forward from this point, I'm willing to finally consider the idea that Dexter might be back after all. But what do you guys think? Have you had a chance to watch Dexter episode 9, Resurrection, yet? If you have, what did you think about how Blessing and Dexter's relationship was magically resolved? What did you think about Charlie's response to being kidnapped by Dexter? And ultimately, what did you think about the way in which Batista died? Let me know in the comments. And for those of you that might be new to the channel, be sure to like and share this video. If you really like the content, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. That way you'll be notified whenever I drop a new video. You can also now support the channel by leaving a super thanks. If you should be so inclined, I'd greatly appreciate it. Also, be sure to subscribe to my new Shorts channel for additional content. The link is in the description. In addition to that, be sure to go and check out themadScreenwriter.com for more television and film reviews and info on my upcoming film projects. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. I got screenplays to write. And I'll catch y'all in the next video.